When I started, I knew I wanted a more interesting pose than last time, so I had the idea to have him hitting something. So, with a lack of Primaris around, I hot glued some Chaos Marine bits to the base, having his arm pointed up for later. I wanted to have the Chaos Marine, who I decided would be a word bearer, because, irony, to be screaming up at his counterpart. So I cut this kinda screaming guy's head in half. We'll fix him with green stuff later. Now, to get the pose I wanted, I cut his legs like this, and hot glued them like this. Doing the same for the other leg. I would recommend continuing to hot glue for this part so you can stretch the hot glue to the height you want, and because it gives the green stuff we're going to add later something to hold on to, unlike if you were to pin it. It's also quicker anyways. I found this skull from GW's skull kit and cut the horns off and shaved it down, and put it on his flamer that I just added, as well as putting the horns on his head because word bearers. Now for the green stuff, this first pass was mostly for getting the main things like making the legs and the torso look right. The torso I posed to have one arm holding the flamer back, and the other one would eventually be holding his Crozius ready to strike the heretic. After filling his stomach with green stuff, I put those lines on. Although I feel like I made them too big. Next time before doing the lines, I should wait for it to harden a little bit and then draw the lines. That way it would be easier to work with. Then I filled in the legs, and didn't make them perfect. It's really hard to at this stage, so I don't worry about it too much. We can easily cut it back if it sticks out too far, or add some back if we didn't add enough, or we could even cover it up if it looks really bad, like his butt, but we'll do that later. And then I added his arm, adjusting it to be more the pose that I wanted. After fixing his belt, I used the extra green stuff to fix up the word bearer's mouth, and added some scripts to the chaplain's chest. Then I cut the vents off the backpack, and added some skulls I took the backs off of, to emulate the Dark Angel's chaplain. After attaching it to his back, I glued this Crozius I made by attaching a bit from the company command box, which is filled with bits like this, to a toothpick, which I originally used PVA glue for, but got tired of waiting so I used hot glue. Then I rolled the green stuff up into a tube and flattened it to make these paper, leather, cloth. After that, I flattened more green stuff and made it into a waist cape, and then I add some filler audio so that you can actually see what I'm doing. Then, going back to the legs, I made the knee pointier. I did the same for his foot, but the other one was too far for me to do. No one will notice. Then I took his Crozius arm off because I wanted it to be held higher. I should have attached the Crozius to the arm before putting the arm on his torso, but meh. And after all that, I still had some leftover green stuff, so I made it into a rope and attached it to his leg and poked some lines into it so it looked like rope, and found this little thing, so I put it on too. After that, I put his right shoulder pad back on, and now he's ready to prime and paint. Also realized I forgot to blend the word bearer's horns in, but that's fine. I wanted to try out Trovian's grim dark black scheme, so I started with brown, but I would later find out that this is too dark. Then I went in with black, stippling it everywhere but the edges, is what I meant to do, but it might as well have been a messier base coat. Not wanting to fix it yet, I did his parchment stuff. After painting the skull on his chest, I dry brushed gold on his Crozius, and did the other gold details. Then I stippled red on his left shoulder pad, where the Blood Angel's symbol will go. After doing a couple other red details, I dry brushed a flesh tone over the leather strips on his Crozius. Then I put some dark gray into all the joints in his armor. Now is when I went back and tried to fix the brown edges, but with a lighter brown than last time. It still ended up not looking too good, because I'm horrible at edge highlighting, so I moved on to adding a bunch of blood on his Crozius. Finally, going to the word bearer, I started with a black and stippled red just like Trovian's grimdark red scheme, which worked out much better than the black. Oh, also as the black was drying on the word bearer, I went back to the waist cape and added a slightly darker tan in places is where shadow would be. Back to the word bearer, I painted all the metal bits, as well as his shoulder trim, but went back after with a silver for the trim. Then I put some blood where his arm should be. Then I got to add one of my favorite paints to the skull, skeleton horde. Then I had to darken the red down with a very thinned down contrast black, because it looked more like a blood angel's red to me. And then is when I thought to add the transfers. And it only just occurs to me as I'm scripting this that I don't have any reason not to weather the Blood Angels icon, but I didn't. Anyways, then I put some words on all the parchment bits we did. I added a couple other transfers to the word bearer, and we're done. Wait, I think we're missing something.